New study in the Election Law Journal ranks Georgia 29th for voter access. 11 Alive's Karis Belger spoke with an expert about what this means for the upcoming midterm elections, now 30 days away.
Being able to vote is not always the same as complete access to the voting process. That's the argument made in the 2022 Cost of Voting Index, which looks at voter laws across the country. Georgia was ranked 29th overall. Alan Abramowitz, professor emeritus of political science at Emory University, says the state's recent changes in voter laws are a factor.
I suspect that if you had done this ranking 2 years ago, or before the most recent changes in Georgia's voting laws, that Georgia would have been ranked somewhat higher.
Abramowitz says this is partially due to one change in particular: how voters request absentee ballots. This year, voters have to print an application, physically sign it, and then upload or mail the application.
A lot of people don't have access to printers, for example.
Georgia is near the middle of the pack. Oregon ranked first in the study, and New Hampshire was last. The Election Law Journal specifically mentioned Georgia's ban on giving out food and water to voters in line. Abramowitz says these changes won't necessarily keep people from the polls.
What I would expect to see in Georgia in this year's elections is that probably there's going to be a big shift away from absentee voting and toward either early in-person voting. A lot of the absentee voting that occurred in 2020 was a response to the pandemic.
And he also says the national attention of this year's midterms may prompt continued voter engagement.
Turnout in 2022 is likely to be pretty comparable to turnout in 2018 in the last midterm election, which was a pretty high turnout election, a very high turnout for a midterm election.
In Atlanta, Karis Belger, 11 Alive News.
In Clayton County today, the HBCU Fund and the Clayton County Black Women's Roundtable came together to urge people to register to vote before it's too late. The Young Black Lawyers Organizing Coalition also joined in as well, focusing their efforts on educating voters, fighting voter suppression, and encouraging people to vote during the upcoming early voting period.
We want to make sure that our communities are at the table. And so part of our work is really inspiring confidence in the electoral process to make sure that all of the efforts that exist to intimidate voters, to challenge voters, to make voters more apathetic, really don't have the opportunity to be successful.
There are only 2 days left for you to register to vote for the upcoming election. Tuesday, October 11th is the deadline. Early voting begins October 17th, and the last day to request an absentee ballot is October 28th. For more on the November 8th election, you can head over to 11alive.com.